So I brought out the Samick Sage yesterday as part of my daily isolation archery practice, and this was one of the bows which was requested for, surprisingly. I guess people are very familiar with it, and I think many people have one. If you have a Samick Sage, post below, because I'm not sure how many people watching me actually have or started one of these bows. So the Samick Sage was my first trad bow, like with many of you, though under different circumstances. I've been practicing archery for several years, and then I was contacted by Rivers Archery in, I think, 2013, and they offered a partnership and sponsorship to make a video, and we had a few ideas going. And my idea was to run an April Fool's joke, because at the time, this is like 2013, 2014, the most popular bow in the market was the Samick Sage. And, I kind of made a few videos about it. I was getting a little frustrated because people were recommending this bow to every single person, no matter what style of archery they shot. They kept recommending Samick Sage. Well, I said to Three Rivers, well, I've kind of made jokes about the Samick Sage. Why not give me a Samick Sage? And they did. So I made a whole April Fool's video, and then I followed up with a serious review. And that was actually one of my most successful videos, still is today. It's interesting how it kind of kickstarted my entry into trad archery. Traditional archery is a thing unto itself. The community is a thing unto itself. It's a very different ball game to Olympic archery or target archery. So, it kind of started me on the path of shooting trad. I only shot it a few times. I brought it out a few times in video, but never really practiced with it. It got to the point where I think someone contacted me by email and kind of took it upon themselves to be a mentor, and it was a little heated. I think that he was seeing it more as, I'm coaching you now, I'm watching you shoot trad, you should be doing this. And I said, look, just relax, I'm just having fun with the bow. I don't need professional coaching from an armchair observer. And back then I had so many flaws too. I was collapsing on most of my shots. This was a heavier draw weight than what I normally shoot with recurve. And a lot of things which people will pick up on, and certainly more recently where I've been more focused with my technique and form, especially with more advanced training in Olympic archery. I've applied it and made sense of it in traditional archery. So I've been shooting a lot more trad since. I've got a lot more trad bows since, some of which are basically the same as the Sage, some cases literally the same, rebrandings, updated models or similar bows. In fact, just before I came out today, I grabbed my Sage to film this video, strung it, walked out, and went, hang on, that's not the Sage, that's a Spider. And that was, again, an example how these bows they're so common that it's become the ubiquitous bow. There's a term called zeitgeist, which means the spirit of the times. I think the Samick Sage deserves its place as a Zeitbogen, the bow of the times. So 2012, 2013, 2014, this was the bow on the market. Everyone's selling it. Online sellers, Amazon, eBay, a lot of archery stores were stocking it. So it flooded the market, and it was flooding the market with rave reviews. Most because it was a very low price bow. I think US price is about like 150 to 200 US dollars. That's a very affordable bow. It's a very solid bow, good feel, good feedback, great design. The limbs were compatible with fast flight string, so it boasted a lot of things which sounded really good for beginning archers, and the price point was unmatched. While there were better bows perhaps and more expensive bows, you couldn't really beat this for value. So having gone through a lot of bows over the last few years and now coming back to the Sage, is the Sage as good as I remember it? And the short answer is yes. Now, I know that probably pleased a lot of Samick Sage fans. It's kind of funny saying this because I'm not the kind of person who has a lot of brand loyalty. I don't really buy a brand because I like that brand. If it's a good product, I'll get it, whether it's one brand or another. But people call themselves Samick Sage fans for a good reason too. It's a solid bow. It's something which it fits the image of what people thought a bow should look and feel like. I shouldn't talk while shooting. But the bow it's like the first entry point into archery for many people. Like I said before, the price is unmatched. It's still being sold today by shops. I know I've been following some of my local stores and they've restocked the Sage. Price points may vary depending on how much they can get it shipped here. I know some people really went out of their way to get this Sage imported to Australia from, say, America. Maybe a little overkill. I'm not sure the Sage is that good when we import it. But if you can get it locally, it's definitely one of the top choices back then. Still is today. And again, after using this for several years, I think it fits the bill as the ubiquitous trad bow, or at least the modern trad bow. The takedown design, wooden recurve. Like I said, it looks and feels like what a bow should. And again, back then, I didn't really appreciate it as much because I wasn't really a trad shooter. I didn't have much experience with trad bows. My technique without the Olympic gear was all over the place. But now that I'm a slightly better archer of the past 5 or so years, I feel like I can finally make use of the Sage to its full potential. I mean, one, the draw weight is well under control now. The technique is there to control it. I don't feel I'm collapsing as much. And I decided to make this video thinking about my time with the Sage because, you know, shooting yesterday, I brought all my experience back to my first bow. I think many of us can appreciate when you start with a newbie bow, your first bow, you go on a long life journey, you come back to your first bow, and you're like, hey, this is actually a pretty fun bow to use. I'm going through that feeling right now. There was before, I felt like I was struggling with draw weight. Now it's like, this is a nice effort, nice oomph, nice punch to it. It's funny because the Sage was in fact my first bow review. I don't think I really did bow reviews before that. I mean, I've reviewed a lot of different bows, but I think the Sage was actually my first bow review before I called them bow reviews. And that was a special collaboration with Rivers Archery. And, you know, things like draw weight don't really bother me anymore. The whole trad shooting, bare bow shooting doesn't bother me anymore. I mean, I can gap, I can shoot instinctive. I'm not a expert trad shooter by any means. Again, there are many more people better than me on YouTube. But as a first step, I feel like this Sage has been quite pivotal in my development as an archer, even though I haven't used it much since. Twice, you know, getting a 10-meter grouping here, shooting instinctive, it feels good. And like I said, one of my regrets in having the Sage was I haven't really run through a lot of shots with the Sage. I started with it, I quickly replaced it, but the bow really deserves a bit more recognition than what it gets at the moment. We know it's overrated and it gets a lot of rave reviews, but the bow is a really good bow. And the reason why I think it's a really good bow is because there's nothing wrong with it. That's really it. I mean, you can talk about the feeling, the lack of hand shock, the price point, the modular assembly, but I think what makes the Sage still a good bow is that there's nothing wrong with it. At the time I was reviewing this bow, I said the Sage was perhaps one of the safest bows because you can't go wrong with it. Like we said before, the price point was really low. It's a great entry point into traditional archery, and many people could access it. Back then, it was mostly North America. You didn't really find it in Australia or Europe, but now these days, a lot more shops are selling it, plus online retailers are really pushing it out. And like I said, years on, the Sage still feels like an excellent bow. It is a bow which it feels better than what you pay for it. It's definitely something which punches above its weight. If you're getting into archery and you're wondering, after all these years, after all these reviews, is the Sage still as good? The answer undoubtedly is yes. So if you have a Sage and you still love using it, post your thoughts below. I'm curious. It's been nice coming back to this, partly because there's a bit of nostalgia to it. It was quite a milestone in my career as an archer and as a YouTuber, and I still have it. So, you know, Like I said, haven't got through so many bows, and I still have my new favorites. The Sage is still venerable. It is still a reliable bow, and I have no doubt that if you have one of these, you're probably still using it, or you still want to use it. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. This is my little reflection in my backyard archery. Hope you're staying safe where you are. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you next time.